We're talking about Jack Hargreaves and his programs he used to make, which were he talked about things that were people used to do. We're talking about in 1950s when he did his first started. He was a school teacher and he were a clever chap, but he wanted to hark back to things gone by, and he was talking about what they used to do in Victorian days and things that they did at that point in time. When fields had meadows, they're into meadow. You can't find a meadow only here now because the fields are the factories. The factories, they have these massive tractors that work on satellite. They don't even need to steer them. That's why roads are dead straight. At one time they had ploughing matches where people had old tractors and they got to try and get them as dead straight as they can. They don't now. It's satellite job. They set the satellite and the tractor goes up and down. Marvellous things. They're an industry of their own doing job. But that's how things are. That's how things are. It'll never be the same again. When I were a lad, I used to go bird nesting with my dad, which were a rotten thing to do, but it were interesting. And there were a lot now. Things are disappearing because there's no habitat. You know, we've got a barn owl here, and this barn here, there's a buzzard there just flying up. We've got a barn owl here. Now barn owls can't find anywhere to roost because there's nothing, all trees, there's nowhere for them to roost. And this is why I've got this barn, and there's a opportunity for barn owl to bring a family up. And over years, for the last 40 odd years which I've had this place, there's been opportunity, and owls have had numerous youngs, brought numerous little ones up. What I'm going in for is a hedging bill.
Hedging bill?
Yeah. I've got an electric strimmer thing, but if I can get in there. Hedging bill is what I wanted. I've got quite a collection of these things, these hedging bills. I don't think it's going to be light enough to be able to see how it is, Steve.
Oh, it's way too off.
Can you see?
How can I?
See, there's an old bike that's ready for doing up.
Yeah.
That's about a 1930, that.
Wow.
An old guy went to work and back, worked at Shardlow's, making crankshafts for cars. And he went back every day, backwards and forwards on that bike. Everything's absolutely worn out on him. And he died a few years since, and his widow says to me, "Do you want his bike?" I says, "Aye, I'll have his bike, and I'll tidy it up, but not do it up, just as he left it." And that's how I want that. This bike, look, and this is an old bike, and I've got a Union Jack on that one, look.
Wow.
Well, so we're having this much stuff is when you want something, you've got that much stuff to fend through, you can't find it. And if you tidy up, you can't find anything at all.
That bit of film I've done.
Edging bill.
Oh, I'll put it on a DVD, that bit of film I've done, so I can show it to Mrs. and that, eh? She'll probably laugh at me.
She will laugh at me. Laughs at me all the time. I've been married to her for 50 years.
Ah. Bloody hell.
That's another story. I used to ride to hounds. Years ago, I used to ride to hounds. And I were up in North Yorkshire, on horseback, riding to hounds, and my horse put its foot down a rabbit hole. Broke its leg, rolled over me, and broke my neck. I broke my neck, my cervical, which is just down about level with your shoulders. I broke my neck, and I was laid out, and I was paralysed from neck down. They carted me off to hospital, to Barnsley Hospital, and First thing they did, they said, don't move. And they said, right, we've got an operation, so what we want to do, we want to drill a hole either side of your head into your skull and put a caliper on it, and we want you to lay out on bed, and we're going to put a 20-pound weight on it to pull your spine apart, like that. And I laid there for 3 months without moving, with this bloody thing on my head. And the only thing I could do, my dad gave me a mirror, and so I could see what were going round. And my dad says to me one day, he says, Dad, what do you want? What can I bring you in? I says, Dad, I want you to bring me a bucket in with a grass sod in it. He says, what do you want that for? I says, I miss seeing fields. I want a grass sod in a bucket. So he brought me a grass sod. Bloody nurses thought it never seen out like that before. Anyway, so I'm there with my mirror, and this little student nurse comes on. She were 19. I thought, look at her. Boy, she's lovely. And she come up and she says, right, I'm looking after you for the time being. So I says to her, when I'd seen her for a day or two, I says, if I ever come out of hospital, will you come out with me? And she said, yeah, I will. I thought, crikey Moses. Anyway, 6 months later, what they did, when I got this clamp on me, they put plaster from my waist right up my body, up my neck, just with my face out like that, all round my head, and they call it a Minerva. I look like King Tut's tomb. I look like a mummy. That's just what I look like. I've never seen anybody since in one of these jackets. It were something that they'd just come out with. And they said, right, we want you to go out to hospital now and just take it steady. So I says, right. So of course I'm sat at home thinking to myself, I can't drive my car, I can't do no, because I can't turn my head. I was just like this. And I says to my sister, I says, I want you to lend me a wig. I says, I've got this bird to take out. I says, I want you to lend me a wig. And I says, I'm going to put this wig on and pin it to my thing so my face will be out. And I says to my dad, would you take me a wing mirror off a car? Because he used to be a mechanic. I said, I want you to screw it to the side of my plaster, so when I look in the mirror, I can see behind me. Right? He says, well, what are you going to do? I says, well, I just bought a mini car. And I said, oh, I've got a girl to take out. I've got to take her out. Anyway, so I got in my car and drove over to Barnsley where she lived. And her dad were a doctor, and her mum were a nurse. She were a matron, her mum. And I gets out of my car and knocks at the door, and she come to the door and I says, I've come to take you out. Well, you can imagine what parents thought. There's this here bloody bloke with a false wig on, a bloody wing mirror fastened to the side of his head. Come to take your daughter out. And so we went for a run in country. We didn't go anywhere particularly. And that was nearly 50 years ago. And I finished up marrying lass.
Wow.
Married her.
What a story.
She's been looking after me for that's 50 years.
That's absolutely brilliant, mate, honestly.
I mean, have you ever had an old lad out in your life?
I've never had an old lad out in my life. That's absolutely fabulous, honestly.
Well, that sort of bloke I am. I'm never, and I always think to myself, no matter how bad things get, they can never be as bad as they were when I couldn't move. And I couldn't do note. And they said, well, you've got to take it steady. And I thought, there's no way, I've never taken anything steady. I've always thought of a way around it. And I said to put a wig on and a wing mirror fastened at the side of your head and a big hat on and a big coat on. In fact, my sister made me a shirt because round my neck were about 24 inches because it was plaster. And I couldn't get out on, so she made me a shirt with a right big collar so I could fasten it up and look reasonably smart.
Does live their life to full, haven't they, mate? And enjoyed every minute of it, haven't they?
It's bloody unbelievable.
It's fabulous, mate.
It's bloody
That's
unbelievable.
absolutely fabulous.